Welcome to Leave Room for Milk, the podcast about life, the creative process, journey, and a good cup of coffee. Today, I have Chris Gray.
Yeah, and also, so let's just talk for a second about why we even wanted to do a podcast. So I think you're actually the one that came up with the idea, I think, to even start a podcast. I know you had been working on some other things with some other people as well. So what gave you the idea to want to even start the podcast?
Yeah, so I've always watched the YouTube channel Film Riot, and that's been a pretty big part as far as me as a filmmaker. And I loved the way that they broke down things in their videos and such, and the tutorials and all that, and the behind the scenes. And I also enjoy watching a lot of podcasts. And so I feel like there's this happy medium that I hope we can achieve with this podcast as far as being able to dive into the behind the scenes more of a project we may work on, or even, we get to come across a lot of really cool people in this industry, super talented people, and just getting to bring that, like highlight that to get inspired really is what.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. Getting into filmmaking, I basically learned how to shoot video from YouTube. So I felt the same way. And then as well with podcast, with my previous job, it used to be where, I didn't really talk to people much. I was all day with headphones in, so I was able to listen to podcasts. And there was a lot of different podcasts that I used to listen to, one being like The Wandering DP. That's kind of what even got me wanting to be a DP. And so I think that podcasts can be super beneficial, super helpful. You can learn, and it's great to be able to listen no matter where you are. And being that we are filmmakers, we have the added benefit that we can go ahead and put it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, produce it ourselves.
Produce it. So I'm glad that we're finally doing it. We've talked about it for a couple months now, and so it's good to be here on episode 1 of Leave Room for Milk. And so, where did that? We were having the hardest time coming up with a name.
Yeah, for the
with
name.
A name for some reason, and it really boils down to the fact that we love coffee. And ultimately, we wanted to be able to interview and talk to creatives, as well as, like Jesse said, breaking down behind the scenes and breaking down some of our shoots, but as well as just talking to people in the film industry. If you don't know this, you like coffee. Everyone likes coffee, and so it's a good place for us to sit down, have a cup of coffee. As far as the name, Leave Room for Milk. Kind of just
it's self-explanatory.
Yeah.
So let's get into you. So you started out painting cars, right? That was kind of your big thing before you even got into filmmaking. Before you picked up a camera, you painted cars.
Yeah. So I'm new to filmmaking and I'm old. So I think kind of the moral of this whole episode and kind of breaking down my life a little bit is kind of the idea of it's never too late. Because for so long, I felt like it was too late in life for me to transition into a new career. And I am 34, and I've only been professionally filmmaking now for a few years. Me and Jesse actually met on a shoot, which was actually it was a pretty big shoot that I put together. But so weird story is it was actually kind of my first legitimate shoot. I had done a lot of stuff prior to that, but it was always stuff that I did by myself. I always did like a lot of run and gun, like going shooting little music videos or shooting little projects for the church. It was always stuff that I did by myself, like a little DSLR. So that was like the first project that
bigger project.
Yeah, like I wanted to
more
bring
people
in,
involved.
I wanted to bring in like an AD and
we had like key grip, gaffer.
Yeah,
actors.
well at that point too, I didn't even know what
that meant.
I didn't even know what everything was. I knew that like I wanted it to look good, and so I was like, what do I need? I wanted to be a DP. I'd listen to some podcasts and things, but I didn't really know what that meant.
Yeah.
Other than like you make it look nice. But so I learned that, I need a good gaffer. Like I think a good gaffer will help. And so we contacted a guy, and he came out, brought his truck, and it was actually a fairly large shoot. We ended up having
it was a good bit of people.
Yeah, all in all, plus extras.
30, 40?
Yeah, there was probably 30, 40 people. And So it's just funny that my first legitimate shoot I was ever on as a DP was like my own shoot I had to produce and
Yeah,
do
I mean,
myself.
I feel like you were more of a director in that sense.
Exactly.
You're
yeah.
like, man, this is the first project I'm gonna DP, and then you're directing, and
And also, when I was thinking about the process, I was like, well, if I shoot this, it's probably going to suck. If I light it, it's probably going to suck. I still want to do all those things, but so I was like,
well,
okay,
if I get this other guy Jesse to shoot it, then if it sucks, I can blame it on him.
Exactly. So like, I
That's
got a gaffer.
That's how we met, by the way.
And then on Film Community, I saw a post that you had made and reached out to you about being a cam op.
Yeah.
And so I had you and a gaffer, and I thought, well, great, I'm pretty much set
Good
now.
to go. Yeah.
And
then I think I brought one of your actors on to the project, or at least mentioned him to you, Tyler.
Yeah.
And so we had Tyler, which is a good friend of ours, and then also Sarah came on that. That was a fun shoot. It was fun for me as well.
It was a learning experience for sure, but
yeah.
I don't even remember where I was going before I got on that subject.
I was gonna pull up some car.
Yeah. Like I said, I spent 18, 19 years as a professional automotive painter. This is my previous life up until probably
Look at him go.
31 years old. This is what I did. I did production paint work. This is when, like I said, I was doing kind of filmmaking on the side, and I was, doing little things. I had got a GoPro and stuck it up in the paint booth corner and thought this was like the coolest video ever.
How long did it take you to get to be that good to just do a whole car I mean, it looks like you're doing it by yourself, like no one's coming in checking on you.
Like I said, I did it for 19 years, and that shop that I was at, I was the only painter, and we were a production shop. So any automotive painters out there, I was doing, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say this, but I was doing about 200 plus hours a week by myself. So I was killing it. I was doing really well. Financially, I was doing really well. Had a kid. I had one kid at the time when I was debating on whether or not I should leave the industry and basically start over.
Yeah.
It was hard to make a transition like that, knowing that I literally spent 18 years ish, because before I was even out of high school, I was painting cars.
Yeah.
My dad owned a shop or ran a shop, and I was the porter. I was pushing a broom in the shop, and one day the painter quit, got mad, walked out and quit, and I was like, I'll do it. I started before I was even out of high school. So, I mean, before I was out of high school, I was making like 50, 60 grand a year. And so there was no way I was like going to college. So I continued with it, even though I hated it. Like I always hated painting. It was just really good money. Yeah. So I stuck with it. And, I looked back 18 years later and was like, man, what have I done? I felt so trapped. And again, man, if there's a point I want to get across, is that it doesn't matter how trapped you feel, like there's always a way out. And so the turning point for me, which is kind of a hokey thing that I used to would not really want to tell people about, because he kind of gets deemed as crazy person. But so like I said earlier, I would, a lot of times have headphones in and listen to podcasts. Mm-hmm. And so, outside of listening to film podcasts, Warner DP, stuff like that, I used, I think one day I was on YouTube and it was doing like the autoplay thing, and it came on some guy and he was talking, all this motivational stuff. Mm-hmm. And I got me fired up, man. I was like...
To be a filmmaker?
No.
Just fired up in general?
Just in life. This guy was just talking about how, like, you don't have to be trapped, and, like, you don't have to, do what live...
It was speaking to you. You were literally thinking it, and then it started playing.
Yeah, you live the life you want to live kind of thing. And, it kind of hokey probably, but, like, it really got me fired up. Turns out, I didn't know anything about him at the time, but looked at it. It was a guy named Tony Robbins. Of course, everybody knows who Tony Robbins is now. Most people do. You know who Tony Robbins is?
I know Tony Robbins.
Come on. So anyways, I started listening to a lot of Tony Robbins. Then I came across several other people on YouTube, like Bob Proctor and Tim Ferriss and Gary Vaynerchuk, and started like every day, like I'd go to work and I would all day long listen to podcast or YouTube videos of people that were basically doing what they wanted to do in life. And all that really started getting in my head, like, man, I can do something different. And I was already doing filmmaking. I was already
kind of
dipping my toes in it, and I was doing it at a church here and there, which that's another whole story I'll get into maybe in a minute, but how that even came about. But I was already doing it. I just wasn't doing it on any kind of level where I could leave a lifetime profession and start over.
Well, yeah, because anyone will tell you gotta be real passionate and real stupid.
Yeah, I mean, everybody at work said
do what we're doing.
Yeah, everybody at work said I was an idiot. They're like, that's not gonna work. You're gonna screw your family over. And I mean, straight up told me I wasn't gonna make it as a filmmaker. And when my son was born, so my second child, I only got two, but when my son was born, we were out of the hospital for we were in the hospital for like a week because Megan kind of had a bad pregnancy, and it was just we were gone. I was away from work for like a good solid week, and like I said before, I was working like crazy hours, so for me to be gone for a week was a big deal at the shop. And I came back to just all kinds of garbage, man. Like, just the guy that was my helper basically kind of weaseled his way in and got in their heads and basically stole my job, and ended up being a deal where it was kind of a mutual. I went in the office and basically was like, F you, I'm out, kind of thing, slammed the door, and left. And then I was like, well, I either go get another job painting or I try to make this filmmaking thing work. So I struggled, man. I had decided I was going to freelance, which I found, if you don't know, if you do not have good work to show, you don't have any connections, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes a long time when you don't have those connections to build up some sort of repertoire of clients and of people that, I mean, it really is just word of mouth. Like, it's unfortunate, but you do have to do like those free projects or next to nothing projects to even be in their conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And I almost fell on my face, and
like physically
and mentally.
He does that a lot. He almost falls.
I'm pretty clumsy. But no, I told Megan, there was a certain threshold of money that we had to meet to
live.
Yeah, basically. To not lose everything. And it just wasn't happening for months. And we were going into savings and everything else. And basically told Megan that if something didn't happen, I was going to have to just tuck my tail and go back to painting cars. And, man, we prayed about it. We were like, God, like, what do we do here? Because I always wanted to be in a creative position. I always wanted to have a creative job other than painting. And I'd tried many times in the past to leave painting, but like, it just seemed like every time I walked away from that profession, somehow or another, I'd have to tuck my tail and come back. And so I was like bound and determined not to do it again. But man, like I said, we prayed about it. We were like, what do we do here? And then I saw, again, I didn't even realize this. It was the stinking Atlanta film community again. Yeah. Because my buddy Mike, which he wasn't my buddy at the time, but he posted a job description for them the company looking for a DP filmmaker, and totally unqualified for the job. But I sent him a message, and he said, told me to like film something and like send it to them, kind of like.
Oh yeah.
So I made like the stupidest little video, and lo and behold, got an interview, and then sat down in the interview and ended up going into my whole like past of drug addiction, and from that to my failed music career to like, I just gave my whole life story in a matter of like 30 minutes.
Before we get into that, would you want to touch on any of that, like before like getting over all that and stuff, or would you rather just go into the
I'll come back around. I'll finish this story. But so basically got the job. The owner of the company really took to me well, and they hired me out of like 1,000 people. So it was great, man. I was completely unqualified for it, got the job, And I learned a ton because, like I said before, filmmaking for me was something that I learned from YouTube and from playing with my kids or my wife, or or like a buddy that would let me, or like something at the church, but I never had any like real experience.
Yeah.
And so getting that position there, I learned so much in I had to. The company that I'm talking about still is actually the fastest growing marketing agency in the country. So Inc. 500, big company, and the CEO, the owner, I look up to a lot. He's an insane business guy. He grew the company in like the first year over $1 million to I think they're like within 5 years over $10 million or something. So it's just crazy.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah, so it was crazy that I even was able to get the job there. I met a lot of cool people, got to fly all over the country doing film work, and outside of doing that, then I was also doing like weekends and
kind of like freelance.
Yeah,
stuff.
still doing freelance and working on that, and started doing some like PA work, again like stuff through the film community because I knew I needed to learn like lingo. I needed to learn what things were, so I needed to get on actual sets. So I started doing a lot of that stuff as well. And after spending a year at that company, I it about killed me physically.
I remember you would call like
all
the time.
I was
You'd be
working like 90 hours a week. Like,
it was like the first few months, you're like, this is great. Like, this is what I want to do. And then like as the months went on, you're like, okay, they're throwing a few more edits my way. You're like, I think I can do this. And then like by month 4 or 5, you're like, this is killing me, Jesse.
Yeah, I'm gonna die.
This is bad. But it was funny though, because you tried to get me a job there, which that didn't work. I didn't. I made it to the interview process, but not past that. But it was just funny because you ended up leaving like I think a month after that.
Exactly.
So it was like if I would have got the job, you would have been gone, and I would have been
like,
screwed.
oh, thank God Jesse didn't get hired.
Yeah, they would have been giving me all your edits.
Yeah, so it was tough, especially at that point having my daughter and then my son, who was a year old, a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and working 80 hours a week. I mean, I kid you not, at least 70, 80 hours a week, flying out of the state, a couple times a week sometimes. I mean, it was intense. So I knew I couldn't keep that up forever.
Well, I think deep down too, you probably didn't want to do it forever, but also you're very like self-driven. So like I can't even see you like in a situation like a job like that, even if it wasn't crazy edits. Because I mean, for example, like with Story First, like starting your own company, like that seems more like you, like because that's just what you do. Like even when we were setting up this podcast, like yesterday we were waiting for footage to offload. You're like, let's set up the podcast. Got it done in a day. You built this table. Like you're very like once you get it in your head, you're like, I'm doing this somewhat your way. But, as you learn through the process, it's collaborative.
I am very stubborn.
Well, that's okay. We're both pretty stubborn, so it works out pretty well
you're
sometimes.
Very stubborn.
Okay. Chill out. We're interviewing you here,
Let's turn this on you for a second. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I'm super thankful, man, that our paths crossed. I think that that you've had a major role in, me being able to adapt to this life of being a full-time filmmaker. I mean, I never thought, it's crazy. Like, I mean, even though I'm not at the level I want to be at, just to be able to say like, man, I'm a full-time filmmaker, like that's pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of crappy jobs out there, and to be able to do what we do for a living, man, it's nothing that I take lightly, and I'm very grateful for it. And I think that, there's definitely a long ways to go to get to the place that I want to be. But again, that's the reason why I kind of stepped away from the automotive shop, was not so much just the fact that I hated it, which I did, but I also had a cap on my head because, I got paid off commission. I got paid off of how much work that I do physically. And, as I get older, my health gets worse. I mean, the production is going to get less and I'm going to make less money. So, I wanted to get into an industry where I can grow to whatever level that I want to grow, And at the time too, I mean, I had thought over the years many times of starting my own body shop and, starting my own business, doing that. And I probably could have been very successful at it, but I knew that if I did that, I would be even more tied to it. and I was trying to find ways over the years to untie myself from it instead of like, really strapping it on, where I was really just no way out. And so, here I am now. I've been gone from the company that I was at for, it's been probably about a year now or so.
Yeah. I'd say about a year, maybe a little bit over.
Started my own company, Story First Films, which is a production company just like everybody else. It seems like everyone and their mother has a production company these days.
Everyone and their mother has a podcast.
It's true that. So, but Story First basically is we really try to dig in and kind of pull the story out that people don't really know that they even have. One of the things that I learned when I was working at that company was really narrative, and I learned how to really like dissect an interview and like pull out things and mix and match words and like really bring a story to life that, one of the
that
things
maybe wasn't there.
Yeah, one of the things I would, share a video with somebody, after they thought they completely botched the interview or, were just down and depressed because they were like, we did terrible. We just paid.
Like, I said that?
We just paid $50,000 for this video and we did terrible. And then you show them the edit and they're like, it's amazing. I didn't even know I said all that stuff. But, and, a lot of it is, and this as being such a great editor, that a lot of that goes on in the edit base. So like one of the things that, I got really really good at was editing, and if nothing else, like being able to kind of craft a story, and also the interview process, like how to sit down and talk to somebody and get them to open up to you and share to you. And so with Story First Films, we want to try to really focus heavily on story. As far as me being a DP on a personal level, like obviously cinematography is really important, and everything we try to do it to the highest level that we can and make it look beautiful. But ultimately, story is the most important thing. And so if we get nothing else right, we need to get the story right. And so that's where I'm at now. Been running Story First Films for 6 months or so now, as well as, just starting this podcast. And, I've got 2 kids now. I got a wife, and yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at now currently. And touch back on what you were saying a while ago as far as my past. So the whole story gets a little bit crazier when you really, if you know where I came from, to see where I'm at now to where I came from. Again, I may not be at the place I necessarily want to be at yet, but to be where I'm at from where I came from is a huge deal. And I know that there's probably a lot of people that listen to this podcast that knew the old me. And so to see me talking about it all might be a little weird to them. But yeah, so early on, actually, as you can see from the studio here, and we got some guitars and amps and things. Music was actually my first love. So yeah, I always did have a creative passion, but it was, before I even knew about filmmaking. It was before I even knew that was even an option. Music was my heart. In my early 20s, I signed a record deal. I was still painting cars, but basically I had a lucky break, an extremely lucky break. We're a national top 40 radio station came across one of my songs and started playing it, and I was one of the first like unsigned artists to get played on a top 40 radio station. So things kind of took off pretty quick, and signed a record deal and thought that, I finally made it. I was going to be this big star. And to make a long story short, I basically just pissed everybody off and kind of fell on my face. It was one of those things where I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
It just happened too quick. I had recorded the song because who's my wife now was my girlfriend at the time, Megan, had broke up with me. She'd left me. And so I wrote a song called Tell Me How to Live Like This, recorded it with a good buddy of mine, Jason Horde, who grew up across the street from me. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think I called in a favor, and he was just starting a studio at the time, and I was like, man, I recorded this song, and I'd always looked up to him, man. He was just like kind of like being a young boy and seeing him across the street and like coming home from
he can play.
Yeah, coming home from like
crazy,
tour
man.
and stuff, and I always was like, oh, he's like God or something, you know. And so I I think my mom or something even paid for it, or maybe she gave me the money. I don't even remember how I could afford it, but like I basically got Jason to cut the song, and I was just doing it like basically to try to get Megan to come back. I wasn't really doing it for anything else. And I was playing little bars and stuff. I was playing a little bit, but not like taking it serious, like trying to have a music career. I just cut a pretty cool song, and this is back in the time when MySpace was like, you know, a big thing. So that's to tell you how long ago this really was. But basically, they came across my MySpace page, started playing the song, and it all took off from there. So you know, I really just wasn't ready for any level of success at that point in time, and I was already strung out. I was already on drugs, and so when I kind of got thrown into a situation where, you know, there was more stuff around me, things were more accessible, I basically screwed the pooch.
To put it lightly.
To put it lightly.
Or somewhat mildly.
Somewhat mildly. So, and then, you know, I suffered depression, you know, after that, because you only get one shot like that in a lifetime, you know? I mean, that's a once in a lifetime deal. And so to look back and realize that you blew the one chance you're probably going to get at your lifelong dream was kind of a hard pill to swallow. So I went for a long time and didn't even play music. And then addiction was a huge part of my life for many years. I was really strung out. I started young, you know, doing the normal things kids do, but as I got older, the main thing that really messed me up was coke. The cocaine.
Yeah, not the Coca-Cola.
Not the Coca-Cola.
Not the Coca-Cola.
The cocaine. It about took me down. You know, and that was a few years, man, that I was really strung out and basically at the point of death. And, you know, Megan had left me and I lost my car, was repossessed. I got kicked out of my house, and it was a really bad time in my life. I had ended up moving back in with my dad, and yeah, it was rough, but man, thanks be to God. I you know, I can't really explain what happened. I just kind of had this big God moment one night in my garage at my dad's house where I was high, and I just, you know, was praying. I can kind of remember like screaming profanities at the sky.
Yeah.
Like literally like outside, you know, walking in and out of my garage, just looking up, like, cause I was mad. I was mad at like where my life was. I was mad that I was strung out. I couldn't sleep. That's one of the main things that you don't realize that you take for granted. You don't realize is sleep, man. I can remember so many nights where, you know, I would just.
Is it like insomnia, like just from the drugs, or?
Yeah, it's just you can't sleep.
Yeah.
No matter how much,
like,
no matter how much you want to, you can't sleep.
Huh.
You can't sleep. I went 7 days one time with no sleep.
Wow, that would suck.
Yeah, and so, you know, it was hardcore. But yeah, man, I just remember that night screaming, mad, and like I just broke down. Like I legitimately broke down, started crying. Man, I started praying, and you know, it was 100% God, man. Like I will fully say, like, you know, that it was a healing from God, because I should have been dead. I should have not been able to stop doing what I was doing cold turkey because of how much stuff was in my system. But it really was kind of a God moment for me. And my dad kind of helped me through the process of trying to get sober.
Yeah.
Started taking like a lot of vitamins, different things, working out, because at this point in time too, I weighed like 89 pounds or something.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, we were going through those old photos yesterday.
Yeah, I looked like death.
You were like a stick, dude.
So yeah, and then I got back in church. I got in church. Well, I was raised in church early on, then I got out of it, and then so I started going back to church. And a good friend of mine, Noah Cleveland, started pushing me to play guitar and started pushing me to do things in church.
Like get back out there, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it was weird and rough because I was like, man, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to play guitar in church. I was still
Yeah.
smoking cigarettes at the time too. So like he'd push me to do it and I'd go on stage.
You're like the cool kid at church.
I guess so, yeah. I was like playing guitar and then like after I'd get off stage, I'd go around back and smoke a cigarette. So yeah, does that make me cool? I don't know. But anyways, he started pushing me, and then he was going around doing music as well, and so he'd have to be gone Sunday to Sunday here and there.
Yeah,
so,
filled in for him.
Yeah, then he started pushing me like, hey, why don't you fill in and lead worship? And so he really pushed me out of my comfort zone, man. And he's the one who kind of opened the door for me to get into ministry. And, me and Megan got back together. And through this time, too, I didn't realize that she had a big life change. She had kind of got her life together. I had got my life together.
Works out.
We ended up basically decided that we were going to get back together and put God at the center of our relationship. And it wasn't very long at all. I don't remember how long, but it wasn't long after that we got married. The pastor of that church that I was at married us. And then I got an offer from a church that was looking for a worship pastor and took the position. And that was where I first picked up my first camera ever. He owned a little broadcast TV station, and I can show you.
Do you remember the camera you used?
Yeah, if I think about it, it was an XH-A1.
Oh,
how do I remember that?
hot damn.
Well, it was because it was a good friend of ours who had it, and for a long time we would borrow it.
Yeah.
It was like mini DV, but still HD and like pretty decent quality.
The go-to church camera.
Yeah. So, I started doing like little commercials and stuff, and man, I really enjoyed it. Well, I take that back. So I said that was.
You don't enjoy it.
No, I hate filmmaking. No.
Why are we here?
Yeah, let's just kill the podcast. No, I was doing it at the first church. That's when we were borrowing that guy's camera because we started doing it was so fun. I got to pull some of these up. I need to look and try to see if I can. No, they're probably on my hard drive. We can
describe it in great detail.
Yeah, we can put a little interjected thing and put it in there, but it was so stupid, man. So they were doing like church announcements, and we decided we were going to every week film the church announcements instead of somebody get up there and talk for 20 minutes. So we took it serious, man. We came up with the show. It was called the Chris and Cleve Show, and so basically,
it already sounds cringy.
Oh, it was so cringy. We did this little green screen studio and made it look like we were sitting at our news desks and everything. No. But then we took it to another level because after like a few weeks of that, and everybody loved it, of course. So then after that, we decided the Chris and Cleve Show was going on tour. So we ended up basically going on this like
Cleo's and Noah.
Yeah, Noah. So we ended up going on this tour where we went to we were on the Titanic one week and the boat went down with us on it. We went to Jurassic Park and had like dinosaurs like.
This was all green screen though, right?
All green screen, very cringy, like the worst thing you'd ever seen. But people enjoyed it and it was really funny. But that's where I really found my love for filmmaking. I was like, I really enjoyed it. And then me and my wife got married. I took that position. So I already had a little bit of interest in camera. And he owned a broadcast state or maybe he didn't own it. Or I don't really know what his deal was, but
him to you is you to me. Think about that.
That's deep.
Chris has got all the cool gear.
True
I'm just tagging along.
True that. So no, you do much more than that. But then I did a couple commercials for the church that were a little bit more,
serious,
a little more decent than that. That's when we used that XH-A1. Yeah. We did. I did some little commercial and did a bunch of After Effects and stuff. And we had a little script, and I don't know, man. I just really enjoyed it. So I was already in, but through all this, I was still painting. I only worked at the church part time.
Yeah.
I mean, I only got actually that first church, I didn't get paid at all. I mean, it was kind of like a voluntarily thing, but then they would just give me money when they could. So
which is
I might go 3 months, and then all of a sudden they'd give me a couple $100, and then I'd be like, oh, thanks. Yeah. And then,
so I feel like that's usually the experience, unless you're working for a mega church or something.
Yeah. So then I kind of felt like it was time for me to leave that church, and didn't really have a solid plan on where I was going to go or what I was going to do. I just kind of, I don't know. I just had a feeling, man, like it's time for me to kind of wrap this up, step down from the position. And literally the next day, I got a phone call from a much, much larger church in McDonough that was looking for a paid worship pastor. And long story short, auditioned for that, basically got it, and became the worship pastor at the church in McDonough. And that's when I bought my own little camera, bought a Canon 60D. And started again taking
good little cameras.
Yeah, man, DSLR revolution, man. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I got like a nifty 50.
Oh yeah, the little. I mean, literally, like they're probably like what, $100?
Yeah, a little plastic 50 millimeter.
Oh, dude.
And like I thought, like you can't touch.
I got one of those, and like the fake anamorphic filter you screw on. I gave it to my buddy Alex, I think for his birthday or something. But dude, I loved that thing. It was just. Yeah, I mean, there's something so nice about the simpler time of like when you first find out like it's something you love to do. Like right now, it's very technical. We got a lot of cool gear, and it's like that's great. Like that helps a lot. But sometimes it's nice to kind of remember like what it was like when you first started, and kind of apply that to kind of what we do now. You know, simplifying it.
Yeah, I remember thinking that, man, I'm so good at this.
Dude, I think every creative person at some point in their life was like, I am the shit.
Yeah.
Because I hear that all the time from other people, and if I don't hear it coming out of their mouths, I hear it coming out of other people's mouths of that person. So, like, I think every creative goes through that phase of just like, you know, I know I definitely did for a while, but, you know, the more people you work with, it kind of opens it up. You're like, oh, shoot.
I look back now and I'm like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
Like, what in the world was I doing?
Yeah. I still think that.
Yeah, no, I do too, man. Like, there's a lot of times, man, I can't tell you how many times I've been like on the way to set and like Googling
how to do something.
How do I do this? How do I do that?
I mean, that's how I got on your set.
And I'm like, is this normal? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, back to that. Turns out Jesse had told me that he was like great with the Ursa Mini.
For the record, most cameras are the same. They do the same thing. They're just different. And so I put my reel out. That's how Chris, you know, got in contact with me and stuff. And I believe you called me or I called you or something. We were talking on the phone, and I think in the thing too, it was like, must have Ursa Mini experience. I'm like, yeah, I shot on an Ursa Mini. And he was asking me, you know, if I shot on one. I said, yeah, of course. Like, it's a great camera.
Yeah. And
as we're on the phone, I'm like Googling it. Like, oh, this looks pretty simple. Like, that's the on button.
So he shows up, does a great job. Wonderful. You know, I couldn't be happier. I'm thinking big crew, you know, everything like kind of seemed like it went off without a hitch. I was like really proud, and I left, and I start going through the footage, and I'm like where's all the footage at? Like,
he's never gonna let me forget this.
where's all the clips at? Like, I know we filmed more than that, and I'm thinking of like specific shots, and I'm like, where's that shot? Where's this shot?
Yeah.
And so it turns out that if you own an Ursa Mini, FYI,
which we're shooting on,
yeah, which. We really have stuck with Blackmagic. It's affordable.
Dude, the pain.
Yeah, it's affordable, and you know it looks halfway decent. So
the handle was broken. I know how to hit record.
It wasn't broken. So basically the record button on the handle of the Ursa Mini is finicky, and sometimes you press it, it does not record.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that at the time, so we missed about half the shots. And
I missed about half the shots.
Jesse missed about half the shots.
I mean, I completely own up to it, man.
And so then we tried to cut the music video with what we had, and
we did a second day.
Yeah, but we tried to cut it first.
Okay, yeah.
The edit. And
you and Seth?
Yeah.
Cut it?
And it just wasn't working. I was like, man, we got to have more footage. So we ended up having to do a second day, which was an ordeal. I had to fly the artist back down.
Oh, dude, I forgot you had to do that. Dude,
I don't even remember where
I feel bad now. Oh my gosh, I suck.
Oh yeah, it was suck. And
for the record, I didn't make him pay me for the second day. I said, no,
he did do the second day for free,
which was coming out because that
very
was a boo-boo.
Morally correct of you. So, so anyways, we did the we did the second shoot, and we pulled through on that. And looking at that overall project now, man, it was a great experience because I met a lot of people. It was like my first kind of big shoot that I put together.
Yeah.
Met you, several other people that I still talk to this day.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool. I think the edit like came out okay. Like
Yeah,
again,
I
like
thought it
looking
turned
back
out
now,
good.
it's one of those things where it's like, oh,
Yeah, I mean, we're
What
not gonna
was I doing?
get any Oscars for best music
No,
video, but
no.
it was a fun project. It looked good, and I think just to kind of wrap it up, what to take away from this is just basically like it's never too late to get unstuck. If you feel like you're stuck somewhere, if you feel like there's something else that you're passionate about and that you want to, push for, like you
Yeah.
with being a DP in filmmaking and starting your own business, that's really cool and really impressive. What are you looking at?
I'm trying to see if the red light's still on that camera because I don't see it on that one.
Well, you know what? It's all good.
It's all
Because I think we did pretty good you did really good for this first episode.
Thank you.
I mean, just a second ago, you were looking down at your shoes like, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? And I think I've said maybe 10 things.
I don't know. I'm not a talker.
Are you kidding me, dude? You talked that whole 45 minutes. No, that was great. But yeah, so like I said, I think the takeaway is just to do it, man. Like,
Yeah,
even if
I
you don't
were-
know how to shoot on an Ursa Mini, even if you paint cars.
Yeah, that's the main thing that I would leave with anyone watching is just like I said, there's always a way to get where you want to be. And no matter what you're dealing with, no matter how you feel, like no matter how trapped you feel, you just have to move. You have to do something. And for me, like it was dramatic and walking away from a job and not knowing what I was going to do and yeah, it was scary. So there's a level of faith involved for sure, but you have to be willing to do something because if you feel trapped, you feel stuck, but you never move. I mean, you never do anything. You're always going to be that way. So like my biggest advice, like if I left you with one thing is just take a step, any direction, like just take a step. Whether that's like getting on the Atlanta film community, putting a post out there, get on Instagram, DM camera ops, DM people, like just take a step, do something and push forward, make your dreams happen.
Heck yeah, man. Where
So-
can people buy your book?
Well, the book's actually still being written, but it should be
In
out
my head.
in my head. I haven't started putting it on paper yet, but no, yeah, I might write a book. Maybe I'll film a movie.
Maybe so. Where
Maybe
can
you-
people...
Maybe you can write it,
Ooh, okay.
and then I'll
You'll
leave
hate
you-
it. You'll be like, it's too desaturated.
No, yeah. So if you'd like to check out some of our work, go to storyfirstfilmsllc.com. Storyfirstfilms.com was taken, so we had to do llc.com
It's more legit. Don't
For
let
now.
anyone tell you different.
for now until we can get that domain.
Yeah. And where can they follow you? Like if they just want to see your work personally. and stuff?
Instagram on Chris Gray DP, and
It's what Chris _Gray _DP.
yes,
You're welcome.
and yeah.
I feel like Instagram's the
But,
main one. I feel like people don't really get on
Yeah,
Facebook.
story.
they do, but-
You can go to Story First Films Facebook page as well.
Yeah. Oh, and then
So-
we also have the Instagram page for Leave Room for Milk. Be great if you go and follow it if you enjoy listening to this, watching us. We're going to be posting updates, BTS, all sorts of goodies on there when we can. Just another platform to put stuff on. So
Cool. Well,
awesome,
I
man.
think that wraps it up.
Yeah, dude, it was great getting to hear you talk.
Thank you. And this coffee is
Terrible.
amazing.